A big welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today to this language teaching takeoff webinar series, which focuses on making the most of the powerful tools available in the TeacherMatic Language Teaching Edition. My name is �𝗲𝗲, and I worked in the language education sector for the past 7 years. I'm now part of the 𝗙𝗲𝗃 team, where we are committed to supporting educators with innovative and effective tools. It is a pleasure today to introduce you to our host, Nick Peachey. Nick will lead today's webinar titled From Rubrics to Results, How to Provide Impactful Feedback, which focuses on the feedback generator of this edition of TeacherMatic. Nick is an award-winning educator, author, and educational technology consultant with over 30 years of experience in the field of language education. He specializes in integrating emerging technologies, including generative AI, to improve teaching and learning outcomes.
Okay, so I'll get started with the presentation. Basically, I'm going to give you a little introduction to TeacherMatic and what it does, and give you an introduction to the overall range of generators that there are there, because there are quite a lot now. It's about 40. And then we're going to look specifically at the feedback generator and what that can do in terms of how it can respond to students' work and give students feedback. And also not just give students feedback, but help teachers to give their students feedback as well, because it also gives them some advice. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself already there. And at the end, we'll do a Q&A if you have any questions. So if you do have questions as you move along, put them into the Q&A part rather than posting them into chat, and then I'll be able to deal with them all at the end. I might actually ask you a couple of questions through the chat as we work through. But in which case you can respond to chat. But generally, I think it's better to save your questions to the end, and then we'll be able to sort of work through them logically and be able to make sure none of them get missed as well. Because, you know, when you're doing things like this and there are questions coming in all the time, it can be very easy to miss them and get distracted, as I tend to do. Okay, so I'll get started. So TeacherMatic is actually a product of 𝗙𝗲𝗃𝗍𝗂𝗃 Group, and I've been working with the TeacherMatic team and the 𝗙𝗲𝗃𝗍𝗃 Group off and on for quite a while now. I first started talking to them because they had a group of tools that they were using, AI tools that they were using for generating materials for sort of mainstream teaching, and I started looking at how they could sort of adapt them to be specific for English language teaching, which I think is, you know, really important. That, you know, we want tools that are specific to our profession and that, you know, are backed up by the kinds of things that we need, rather than having generalist tools. So I did some work with them to evaluate those, and based on that, they're kind of producing a language teaching version, which is great, and which is what a lot of these things come from. So TeacherMatic, actually, what is it? It's a platform. I've done that awful thing that I hate doing. I hate asking a question and then answering it myself. It really bugs me when people do that. Okay, so TeacherMatic is, I'll be positive, not is a platform for bypassing the problems that people have with prompting. You know, actually writing good prompts for AI is a very skilled and difficult thing to do. You know, lots of people underestimate the usefulness of AI because they struggle with the prompting aspect of it. They go to something like ChatGPT, ask it to do something. ChatGPT responds with something that's not particularly good, and people seem to write AI off. Whereas the difference is with TeacherMatic is that these generators, this collection of more than 40 generators, have been pre-programmed. So they've been programmed by sort of AI experts who are very good at coding and been programmed to do individual specific tasks. That isn't to say that they're fixed in the way they do that. As I'll show you in a minute, you can still customize them, but it makes it much easier for the average teacher with no knowledge of prompting or no knowledge of how AI works to go in there and get a custom response that's specific to their students. And that's something that's, I think is exceptionally useful. This is kind of what the generators look like in the interface. And as you can see, each of these squares or these blocks, if you like, does a specific task and has been programmed to do that. And when you want to use it and customize it, you just click on the use part. I will give you a link to TeacherMatic, the language version, later, so you can go back and have a look yourself. And where the eye, you'll see a little eye next to the use part. And if you click on that, that also gives you some information about how to use the generator as well, and the kinds of things that it will do for you. So that's sort of quite useful to know. Okay, I think that the good thing to do at this point would probably be to link through and actually have a look at some of them. So I'll take you to my web browser. And here it is, TeacherMatic, and these are the generators. And as I said, if you look at this little I bit, it's got generates information. If you click on it, it'll show you some information about that generator and the kinds of things that it does. So it's useful to know that. If you want a specific one, then you can either browse through them and have a look for the one that you want. And as I said, there are over 40 now. Or as I'm showing you the feedback one, I know what I want to do, so I'll type in feedback, click enter, and there's my feedback generator here. So when I'm ready to use that, then I can just click on use. And what you see here when you get here, and this is the same for all of the generators, is these are the customizable fields. And you can sort of click on these drop-down menus then to show how you would customize it. This one's got assessment criteria, of course, and I can customize these. By default, it has all of these in, but I can deselect some if I want to. And at the bottom, it's got the Common European Framework reference levels, which it does very well because it's been specifically programmed to identify those levels accurately, and it's been tested. And then when we get our results, they should appear here. So what we'll do is we'll give this a try. I've prepared a couple of rubrics for assignments, the kind of typical kind of assignments we give our students, and I've given them to ChatGPT and got them to ChatGPT to write me some example assignments, just exactly the sort of things our students would do, I guess, unfortunately. So I'll grab one of the assignments. So this is a typical sort of thing that we do with students. So I'm going to select. So you can either upload the assignment if you've got it as a document already, or you can copy and paste it in. And I'm going to copy and paste this one in so that you can see it. And that's it. And there's my assignment and rubric. I'll see if I can make that a little bigger so that you can see it. You should hopefully be able to see that. So it's write a 250 to 350 word story about a memorable experience. And there's our rubric. Have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Correct varied use of narrative tenses, descriptive language to make the story interesting, and appropriate sequencing using linking words. Okay, so that's the first part. So that's my rubric. And then for this part, again, with the assignments, I can either upload one or copy and paste one. At the moment, you have to upload or copy paste them individually, but from June, there should be a facility to bulk upload them so that if you've got, say, 20 or 30 assignments that your students have done, you'll be able to upload them all at once and then get the feedback on each individual one as a bulk download as well. Thing that I will point out that's important, and that's here as well, is that you don't upload any student identifiable information about it. So you don't upload things like, their names and addresses or email addresses or anything like that. It's important to remove that first. So anything that somebody might identify or locate them with. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my example assignment. This is one that was written by ChatGPT. I also got ChatGPT to put in a few errors and mistakes. So I'm going to click paste it. There it is. It's pasted in now. Okay, if I just scroll up a bit, I can show you a bit of that. Don't know if your screen's big enough for you to read it. So it says, last summer, I went to Paris with my cousin. We have booked a small hotel near the city centre. So that's, our first error. Everything was fine at first. The weather was nice. Okay. So it's sort of reasonably coherent, but there are a few errors in it. Okay, what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to select B1. So I'm going to get the feedback generator to mark it as though that was a B1 level student, and then we'll be able to see what it gives. So I'll click on generate, and I will wait a few minutes with my fingers crossed, hoping that something emerges. I'm sure it will. It's just... Okay, here it comes. And okay, and there it is. All of a sudden, everything comes at once. Okay, and I'll show you what we've got. Okay, so there's the assignment at the top, copy of the assignment, A Strange Night in Paris. And then for teachers, it's got an assessment report. And so it's got a column with language skills on the left, so that those are the criteria that it's measuring against. And it's got some strengths to give. And it's also got some areas for improvement. And at the end, it's got an assessment of how well they're achieving the level. Okay, and then it's got a little introduction. This report evaluates students' short story submission based on the target level of B1. The assessment, so basically it's just telling you what it's got there. So some correct use of past simple and past continuous, incorrect use of present perfect, and it's showing you the examples. We have booked, someone moved furniture or throw things. So it's giving quite a good breakdown there. So the teacher knows, and the teacher then can decide how much of this they want to feed back to the students. And there's a summary. The submission meets the expectations for a B1 learner, while the student demonstrates good understanding of story structure, use of appropriate vocabulary. There are inconsistencies of grammar. Okay, so it's achieving a B1 level quite easy. Next steps. So it's suggesting some next steps for the teacher as well. Practice using past simple and past perfect accurately in storytelling. Experiment with synonyms to avoid repetition and enhance descriptive languages. So, it's also got a plan of action there that the teacher can take to sort of move on and help this student move on. And here below is the other option, and this is the option that the teacher could give directly to their students. So it's got some positive feedback. Well done on your story. You've written a clear, interesting account of your experiences below, and some feedback to help you improve. So, and again, it's got what they did well and some suggestions for what they can improve on. And at the end, it's got you're doing well at level B1 to improve. Focus on giving grammar mistakes. So it's got some advice for the student as well. So, if the teacher doesn't want to sort of mediate that himself or herself, then he can just give that directly to the student. There's an export button here, and you can of course export that in a number of different ways. You can have it as a PDF if you just want to print it up for a record. Microsoft Word document, which might be a good idea if you want to edit it before giving it back to the students, or a Google Drive doc, or you can share it directly to Google Classroom. If you're working in Google Classroom with online students, that's really handy. What I want to do now is compare that if we were getting that assignment from a different level of student. So we'll see how that compares with the C1 level if it's being evaluated at C1 level. So to do that, I'll go back to the start again. I'll paste in the assignment brief, which I'll go and get from my Word document. Oh, it's still there. It's handy. Okay. And upload the student's work, paste in the submitted work. Got to put that in again. Okay, I'll copy paste that in again. I'll stick with the same criteria, but this time I'm going to set the level to C2. Okay, and see how well that does. Okay, if I click on generate, and again, I'll just have to wait a few minutes. You can speak among yourselves if you'd like to. While I'll have a sip of water. Okay, and that's coming. Okay, and there's our feedback. Okay, so again, it's got for students and for teachers. It's got the submission at the top, introduction, the assessment evaluates the student's response against the criteria. And it's got a brief kind of summary as well. While the submission demonstrates some effort to structure a narrative with various tenses and linking words, it falls short of the C2 level in accuracy, vocabulary range, and overall cohesion. So it's giving some sort of critical feedback there as well. And again, it's giving this information across levels. So in terms of accuracy and grammar, we've got some strengths. It demonstrates some awareness of narrative tenses, basic structure. So it's not just giving students negative stuff, but it's giving them some positive strengths, and then it's giving the criticisms here, and then it's giving it the overall assessed level. So it's telling it's about B1 for accuracy of grammar. It's got B2 for fluency in communication. And again, there's some strengths and some weaknesses. Okay, coherence and cohesion, strengths and weaknesses. And then it's got a summary. So this submission is below the target C2 level. Student demonstrates an inability to structure narrative, and it's giving some next steps as well, include focused practice on advanced tenses, things like that. And then the feedback that it's written for the students, it's not being entirely negative. It's got, you've written an interesting story, clear beginning and end. However, there are several areas to work on. And just like with the teacher's feedback, it's giving some positive things, what you did well, and some areas to work on as well. So it's not entirely negative. So the student won't be totally demotivated. And at the end there, it's got your stories engaging, but to reach a higher level, focus on improving your grammar, expanding your vocabulary, etc. So this is quite interesting. It's taken the same assignment. It's given very different feedback at different levels, which is great. One of the criticisms that I've often heard about from teachers who are using feedback generators, though, is that they can often be too positive, and students don't really get the message. They look at that kind of underlined message of, well, the story's engaging, great. I'm going to pass my C2 level exam, and that isn't the way it is. So what you can do here, whereas it says refine, there's a field refine at the bottom, you can ask it to be more critical if you think that's the case. So so I'm going to ask it to be more critical in the feedback, and I'll click on refine, and we'll see how that changes it. Again, you can have a quick sip of water or chat among yourselves while I do this. Okay. Takes a few minutes, but it's still quicker than having to do all this yourself, I think. Okay, so here it is. We'll look at the students bit first. Your story was interesting, had a clear structure, but there were several areas you can improve to make your writing more polished and advanced. Below is feedback to help you. And so the feedback is pretty much the same. Your story is easy to follow. It's maybe not as positive. And then the summary, your story is engaging and easy to understand, but to reach a higher level, focus on improving your grammar, expanding your vocabulary with idioms. So it's giving sort of slightly more critical feedback. And I think the part to the teacher as well is more critical as well. This assessment evaluates students' response, blah, 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 while the student has attempted to create a narrative with logical structure, significant weaknesses in grammar, range of vocabulary, blah, blah, blah. And again, a bit more critical here, there is minimal use of advanced language features and the story lacks sophistication expected at this level. So then the teacher would have the decision about whether they kind of push this more critical kind of evaluation to their students or not. And again, at the end of the teacher's part, there's a summary, which again is more critical. So if they want to be a bit harder on their students, or they think their students need that extra push or that extra criticism, they could do it. Similarly, if you wanted to refine it and make it a bit softer, if you think a student's struggling anyway, you could do the reverse and then make it softer for them. So basically, that's the feedback tool, and as I said, that can be exported as different types of document, just depending on which kind of environment you're working on, or whether you want to moderate that or edit it before it goes back to the student. I'll give you a link to the presentation, and it takes you through the steps, so it shows you how to customize and add the students' assignments and how to get that feedback and the kind of things that we'll look for. So basically, especially when, in another month's time, once the bulk upload is there, that really kind of, that becomes a really big time saver for teachers when it comes to marking. Okay, you've still got to go through that and, moderate it yourself and make sure you know what's going on with your students. But as well, if you've got, say, 20 students and you can look at all those different the different feedback it gives them for next steps across your class, then you can start to sort of differentiate learning and set different homework tasks for different students, or decide what you want to sort of gather together and do together as a class. So, lots of different ways it can really help you.
So have a look here if you want to discover more about TeacherMatic Language Teaching Edition. And also don't miss the opportunity of joining us on the next webinar, which is on the 12th of June, where we're going to focus on two generators, so the Adapt Your Content and the CEFR level checker generators. So we appreciate your time today, and we look forward to connecting with you again very soon. And thank you very much, Nick, for hosting this great webinar. I think it was great for everybody, such a useful tool for teachers.
Very much so, yeah. Thanks for coming along, everyone. See you in the next one, I hope. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.